Make sure our view is correct. Yes. Oh, Alan just disappeared. He was here.
He was here. Oh, I don't know where he went. He was here.
Yeah, probably
I'm
sign
sure he'll
back
be
on.
back. He wasn't.
No worries. And we did actually get a question from, as soon as I find the, yes, asking questions. Here we go. So we'll wait until, owner is Keith, I know that. So we will rename it. Alan is back.
Yeah.
Your picture disappeared.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm there.
All right. Sounds good. Oh, there you are back. Good, good.
I pushed the wrong button.
No worries. All right, so we did get a question from the internet. It says, Jai Guru, is the clarity of the question asked an important factor in breaking through the hold of a concept? That's the first question. And it says, is the clarity of the question asked an important factor in breaking through the hold of a concept? No. The knowing who the questioner is, that's the most important part of any question, knowing who the questioner is. Because if you know yourself in a real sense and you ask, like, what happens after I die? Well, this is just because there's a lack of conviction that you're the formlessness and that there's no birth or death. So if you ask about, you know, let's see that on Cure a lot, where people say, oh, how do I know if it's a right guru or if this is a good teacher or if he's going to rob me or any of these things? And again, the clarity of the questioner. Who's questioning? Who wishes to know the answer to this? It's got to be the body base, because the formlessness that you are, that just I, that very, very subtle sense of presence that can be felt through body form, can't be taken advantage of. And everything is occurring within that. So any question is just a doubt about your formlessness, and it means there's just a little bit more work to be done in meditation, through meditation, instead of just saying, oh, there's a subtle sense of presence, I feel this sense of presence. There's, at the first beginning stage, is identifying with that sense of presence, or like Nisargadatta Maharaj says, identifying with the I am. And okay, so I'm more like the sense of presence than I am like this body. Now, this starts to eliminate a lot of questions, because if I'm more like the sense of presence than I am the body in which the presence appears, then there's automatically a separation of the concept of being a body. And now I try to remain with that sense of presence as much as possible, knowing that this I'm closer to, and I can feel that because this instrument is available. And so I want to remain with my selfless self, remain with that sense of presence. And that's not a duality. Duality is identification of something that you are not. And although you are not presence, so to speak, you're basically a knower of the presence, it's better to identify with the presence than it is with the body. Both are false, but if you're going to have two false things, you identify as a body, which comes along with an illusory world and illusory problems and birth and death and a conceptual merry-go-round, as Maharaj says, the bubble of illusion, or you identify more with the presence. And for a time, like Nisargadatta Maharaj has said, you remain with the I am. Ramakant Maharaj, Sri Ramakant Maharaj has said, the selfless self, the just I, and you remain there. So now when a question is asked, you can say, the clarity of the questioner. If there's a clarity that I'm asking a question as a body form, I'm based on a false precept. So no matter how clear my question is, it won't matter because it's based on a false assumption. As Maharaj very beautifully says, the wrong files. Our computer is filled with wrong files because every file was stored, every memory was stored from the perspective of being a body in a world. And so every experience you've ever experienced has been through this concept, I'm an experiencer. This body is having experiences. I remember when I went to the beach. I remember when I went, wherever, my vacation, this and this. And because it's the wrong file, because everything is from the perspective of being a body, every question I ask in that bubble of illusion is nothing. When you know yourself in a real sense, you can say, okay, there is a memory of going to the beach. But now that I know myself in a real sense, I don't pay so much attention to this memory or want to recreate it in the future, because this is where we get that pain and pleasure principle. Oh, this memory was very terrible. I have to do everything to avoid this memory. And then mind is sitting there, you're identifying with a flow of thoughts. I don't want this to happen. From the perspective of knowing yourself in a real sense, things are coming and going and nothing's happening. Because you're formless. You are more like the space in the room than the objects in which you're more like the space in the room than the objects within that space. Even though the appearance is that I'm an object, you're an object, and we're in this space, the reality is you're the space and there's two objects within it that your power is animating. And again, we go back to dream. So the clarity of the questioner is way more important than the clarity of the question. Who is asking this question? And automatically, if I'm asking, is the guru true, or should I do more meditation? Or you say, you know what, I've gone into this samadhi state, but sometimes I can't hold on to it. What can I do to improve that samadhi state? Again, all of that's within the bubble of illusion, concepts that came along with the body. So the questioner is obviously a body, and that just means that you have to remain with your selfless self until this concept of being a body that can ask a question dissolves. This next question, are all experiences imagination? We say that experiences are like the dream. When you lay down at sleep, suddenly there's a knowledge of existence and a dream world is projected with objects within that dream talking to each other, experiencing each other, living a life, so to speak. You could say this is imagination because when you wake up, oh, it's just a dream. So illusion, imagination, whatever you want to call it, as Maharaj has said, nothing. And not the concept of nothing, but the absence of everything, which is then the actual nothing prior to the words nothing and prior to the understanding of what this nothing is, because nothing came along with the body. Prior to beingness, you didn't know about nothing because there was no concept of nothing. It just is. That you are. We say that a lot, that you are. this subtle, subtle sense of presence. I am more like this subtle sense of presence than I am this body. This body is merely, as Maharaj says, the media, the instrument to know presence. No presence in the body, lump of goo. Presence in the body, you're moving about, doing these things. No gain, no loss to presence, whether there's 100 million bodies or no bodies. No bodies. So imagination is a concept that came along with the body. Reality is a concept that came along with the body, because prior to beingness, you didn't know about reality. You didn't know about imagination. You didn't know about mind, ego, intellect, world, birth, death. None of these things were known. The moment you began knowing yourself, so many things seemingly appeared. But they're all appearing within you, just as, again, we use the example of a dream. Everything that's occurring within the dream is occurring within the dream. And you know this when you wake up. On the other side, I had a nice dream, or I had not such a nice dream. When you know yourself in the real sense, everything that's occurring within this bubble of illusion based on the concept of being a body, it's nothing. Appearances. And I've read about, waking consciousness and dream consciousness are not separate. It's one consciousness. The idea I am dreaming or I am awake creates this concept of waking consciousness and dream consciousness. And again, if you know yourself as formless, then the world is your thought. The world is the same as a dream. It's seemingly substance. When you lay down at sleep tonight and dream, it seems like it's substance. You could probably knock on the wood and dive in the water, but you're not wet. There was no substance. There was no material. The material was an appearance within the formlessness. In deep sleep, there's an absence of everything. And then there's a sense of existence. And all this comes out of that nothing. And this presence clicks with the body, and all this comes out of that. The seeing of all these lumps of goo, because of identification with a specific lump of goo, creates a world and the storylines of the world. My boss, my girlfriend, my husband, my wife, my car, my house, my retirement, my sickness, my health. All these things are concepts based on I am a body, which you are not. And once you dispel this concept of being a body, it's so obvious that nothing is going to hurt you or nothing is going to touch you. And yes, there may be pleasant experience, unpleasant experience. This is a natural occurrence. It's a line of life that's going to run. This body is going to go through experiences. It's going to go through things. And there's going to be decisions in the moment that are going to be made within the bubble of illusion that has appeared to you. You are not in the illusion. You cannot be. You are not in the body is in you. You are not in the world is within you. Again, best example, lay down at sleep, dream. Entire world. You might dream of thousands of people. And yet, on the other side, you wake up and it was nothing. knowing yourself in a real sense is the same. So if you're even the slightest doubt, oh, I might be this body, then that's meditation. Remaining with your selfless self. Remaining with the I am. As Nisargadatta Maharaj says, the I am is the door. You all walk on the other side of the door, and the world is finished. I mean, you can't walk back. You know, you cannot. Just like after a dream, you can't sit there and say, was that a dream or was that real? It felt really real. So maybe there's another world that I go off into, but it's not really a dream. It's like another. No, you can't go back. You know, when you wake up, that dream world is gone. If you had a great dream about, like we talked about before, being a rock star and being chauffeured around in a limousine, such a beautiful dream, and you wake up, oh, I'm not a rock star. Like, and I cannot go back to that. No matter how good it was, I cannot go back. And when you know yourself in a real sense, that's it. It's finished. And that's another question that happens a lot. Well, okay, so are there stages? And this is Maharaj gives the example beautifully, going into the cave and lighting a torch. Instantly the light is there. The darkness is removed. But the steps of getting into the cave and then lighting the torch, all in a moment, you know yourself in a real sense. So it's no longer dark. The darkness doesn't say, oh, I have to hang around for another 3,000 years. It's gone, immediate. And Master says, meditation. Just remain with yourself. Really do investigating. I must know myself. Subtle sense of presence, and I just remained. And it's like marinating in that presence, that selfless self-intoxication. I want to remain with myself more than the illusory world. Even though there's decorations on the tree and they're sparkly and they look really great, and maybe even I'm watching other people, so to speak, really enjoy those decorations, and they're like, oh, you know, but I know myself in a real sense. Why am I going to give myself away to participate in something that is not true? Or worse, to take the touch of having enemies or having problems or having anything like this. Don't disturb yourself by trying to be something. Even holding on to something at all is like, oh, you know, I'm definitely this. You're nothing. That's why Maharaj talks about when they say to someone, oh, you're an ass. Oh, he calls me an ass. Oh, this is very terrible. I have to do something about this guy. Well, but no, because to whom is this label ass? You're the formless. And this is why Nisargadatta Maharaj says, somebody could say, oh, you're a very great saint. It has no effect. Oh, you're a very bad saint. It has no effect. Because they're not speaking about him. When you know yourself in a real sense, what can anyone say about you? What can they describe? Without attributes, how can anyone describe you? Every description is an attribute, and you're prior to attributes. Anything that can be described is just an appearance. Because again, there's no hook on which to hang the hat. This is about me. Doctor says, oh, you have a very bad report health-wise. We're going to have to really monitor you, maybe put you in the hospital. This bad report, this health check has no hat, no hanging to hang on. Yes, again, you follow doctor's instructions, you do what's supposed to be done, but you don't take it so serious. You don't be like, oh my God, I'm too young to have this bad health report. There's no hook. Or the other way, boss says, my God, you are an amazing employee. You are the best of the best. Because this is how, like Maharaj says, sneak in the back door very, very subtly. You start to identify with the thought of, I'm very great. This must be because I know myself in a real sense and I'm no longer caught up in the illusory world.
Very good.
That's the end of the questions.
So, John, practicing the presence, is that a stage?
There's a stage of identification with the sense of presence. Like the thorn, they talk about you'd use one thorn to remove the other thorn. You're identifying with the sense of presence and kind of releasing the stranglehold on this body, this beingness of being something.
Right.
And the more you identify with the sense of presence, the more the sense of presence is felt. Then there's no concepts that can attach to that. And this is happening automatically with mantra, because mantra erases the illusory thoughts that are kind of the anchors, or the, like Gulliver's Travels, when they had took the big guy and they pinned him on all the locations so he couldn't move. The mantra erases these illusory concepts that are keeping you kind of grounded as the concept, I am a body. Because presence can't have this concept, I am a body. The most you could have is I'm the formless holder of the body. And when the body is gone, I will no longer be experiencing myself as John. But that is even like, who's experiencing? Because you're the dreamer without the concept of being within the dream as even a little dream body. You know yourself in a real sense. And by remaining with your selfless self, that's the key. Because, okay, I identify with the presence, so I'm no longer caught up in the illusion, and I just remain. And I go deeper and deeper and deeper within my own selfless self. That black hole that just and the quicker you can sort of remain there with yourself, and maybe at first you're here and you're seeing from this deep, like there's no identification, there's no thought, there's no anything, and yet there's a seeing. And this is why Maharaj says, remain with the seer and not the seen. This seer is very, very, very deep. Seeing, but you're remaining with the seer and not the seen. You're unwinding any concepts that I'm a body in a world having experiences. And there's not even selfless self-intoxication at this point, because there's nothing there that can be intoxicated with itself. There's just a... And that's the meditation. Just I, just I. I without anything. And even the concept of I, there's no ability for a concept of I to form because there's nothing here. And now you go about, do your job, do your duties, take care of all your responsibilities, but you don't give yourself away anymore. Yeah, you just, scenes are appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing. Spontaneous action in the moment. Everything is like picking up the cup of tea, drinking and putting down. Nothing is impressed. There's no mind that sits there and says, oh, this is going to last forever. Oh, so terrible. Or worse, oh my God, I have to hold on to this experience because it's going to be gone in a moment. There's nothing there that does that. It's just scenes appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing, involved in the moment and forget because you know yourself in a real sense. And Maharaj says, no witness, no witnesser, no experience, no experiencer. Nothing is there. Where all experience ends, there you are. Hmm.
Well, seems like as I go through the illusion, I have almost a constant sense of presence.
Hmm.
So I don't lose that usually.
Good, good.
I might get caught up in something, but I know that I'm caught up in something. I mean, I don't lose the sense. But I think that what you're referring to is beyond that, where there's really nothing, not even the sense of presence, because you're so convicted of the selfless self that presence is sort of like a not needed.
This is done automatically. There's nothing to do. And you're remaining with the sense of presence. This is going to just click. Because you know, the pointer is the knower of the sense of presence. So presence has appeared to you. Presence can be felt because there's a body. The body is an instrument or like a little cup that you dip into presence so you can feel it. Selfless self-intoxication then it's just presence as you are without trying to be anything or regulating presence or anything like this. And this unwinds and goes, you know, as Maharaj says, it's very interesting. You go deep and deep and deep within your selfless self. And if presence is now the everyday experience, then you sit quietly and remain with presence. And there's just like it's very, then presence becomes the illusory layer. Just like previously, the thoughts might have been illusory layer, or the concepts I'm a body in, a world were the illusory layer. Now presence is the illusory layer because it's the only thing seemingly covering you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not covering you.
Mm-hmm. And even the intoxication of the selfless self is not, it's not
You won't be able to find anyone that can be intoxicated.
Okay.
There's no experience, no experiencer, no witnesser. Maharaj gives that kind of instruction or that kind of explanation for that you are,
Mm,
where presence is the illusory layer,
mm,
but there's no one experiencing presence because you are.
mm.
It's not possible to experiencing anything because you cannot put it as a center point of this is from where I'm experiencing.
Mm.
Even looking at the body still, there is no center where I can say this is where the experiencer is.
Yeah. Well, John, I think that for me, I hear that these level of nothingness. I'm hearing it more from you than from reading Ramakant's book.
Well, everybody says in a little bit different way. His no experience, no experiencer, where all experience ends, there you are. That's a very succinct, beautiful way to put what we just said.
Okay.
That it is
Mm.
yeah, it's, you could say there's local identification, which then gives you this concept of world. And then you could say, okay, now presence is sort of it's not a local identification, but it's still an identification.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's no point in which I can say from here, this experience or this witness is happening, or I'm witnessing something, or there's no here.
Mm.
Yeah, there's no center point. You are the center point, and everything is revolving around you. Maharaj says this experience happened on the train. As I was reading Selfless Self, actually, I looked out the window, and there was this weird sense that like the world's moving, but I'm not. And it was because you're on a moving train. So it was a very strange kind of like, you're seeing this world moving, the body is feeling the train moving, but there was this center point that was like, I'm not moving. Like everything's moving around me. The world that's passing outside the windows of the train itself, and the feeling of the momentum on the body, but I am not moving.
That's still point.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that you are cannot move. There's no moving. Moving where? Anything that's moving cannot be yourself.
Right. I get that. Mm. Right.
Hmm.
Yes.